Iblis has placed his throne above the water, and then he sends his detachments. The closest of them to him are those who cause the greatest trial. That is a quote straight from the Sahih Muslim Hadith, and I wanted to kick things off with this text because, wow, it really sets the stage. We usually picture evil as this chaotic, mindless force, right? Just a swirling mess of destruction. But what if it's the exact opposite? What if it's actually highly organized?
Welcome to this explainer on the structure of evil. Today, we are taking a deep dive into how history, theology, and occultism mapped out what is basically a demonic bureaucracy. We'll be looking through ancient Islamic texts, the writings of 16th century occult philosophers like Cornelius Agrippa, infamous grimoires, and even catching up with Daniel Defoe from the 18th century. And you know what? They all shared this terrifying, unified vision. The forces of darkness don't operate like a disorganized mob. They run like a rigid, hyper-disciplined empire.
So, we're going on a little kingdom tour today. Here is our agenda. First, the throne over water. Second, the 9 degrees of evil. Third, princes of the 4 corners. Fourth, legions, hosts, and jinn. And finally, number 5, the human connection. All right, let's jump right in at the top.
Part 1. The throne over water. We are starting at the absolute peak of the hierarchy here, tracing the mythos of Iblis, who you might also know as Satan or Lucifer in Western traditions, and the literal origins of this spiritual kingdom.
To really grasp the structure, we first have to understand the ruler, which means looking at the cosmological separation found in ancient texts. It boils down to 3 distinct elemental creations. You've got angels, made of pure light, man, created from clay or earth, and then Iblis and the jinn, created from smokeless fire. So when Iblis was commanded to bow down to this newly created man of clay, he just flat out refused. His reasoning? He believed fire was inherently superior to earth. It was pure, elemental pride. And that absolute arrogance is exactly what got him cast out, prompting him to set up his own rival kingdom over the waters. It's an empire born out of rebellion, but as you'll see, it's structured with terrifying precision.
Which brings us to part 2, the 9 degrees of evil. Moving down from the emperor himself, we hit the supreme council of the realm.
Think about it like this. Just as heaven has its archangels and choirs, this dark kingdom has its own executive branch. The 16th century occultist Cornelius Agrippa actually mapped this out, and it is fascinating. He categorized these spirits as the exact dark opposites to the 9 orders of angels. For every angelic choir, there is a twisted mirror image. At the very top, you have the false gods, like Beelzebub, who demand worship. Below them are the spirits of lies, manipulating oracles. Then it goes all the way down through the Furies who stir up war, the accusers who actively hunt for our flaws, and finally, at the bottom of the executives, the tempters. These are the evil geniuses assigned to individual people to whisper bad ideas. It is literally a perfectly inverted corporate ladder of corruption. But occult history isn't always unanimous, and it gives us a few different ways to look at this top management layer. Some texts, like the wildly infamous Codex Gigas, don't describe 9 degrees. Instead, they talk about a pentarchy, also known as the Gray Star. In this tradition, we're talking about an alliance of 5 supreme demonic princes who emerged from a lagoon after a massive, gory magical ritual that lasted for several lunar cycles. These 5 are ancient, holding immeasurable power to shape reality within their domains, leading massive hosts of creatures.
Okay, moving on to part 3, princes of the 4 corners. We've covered the executives, but how do they manage the physical earth?
Well, they supposedly use regional governors who divide the world up into literal geographical jurisdictions. And this wasn't just random chaos, it was highly organized. Drawn from texts like the Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonum and Agrippa's writings, we get this incredible breakdown. You've got Orions ruling the east and the element of fire, Payman managing the west and air, Egwin taking the north and water, and Mon governing the south and earth. What these ancient scholars were essentially saying is that our entire physical environment was staked out and managed by this dark bureaucracy. Literally, you couldn't travel in any direction on a compass without crossing into a specific demonic prince's territory.
Let's keep descending. Part 4. Legions, hosts, and jinn. Below those regional governors, we find the middle managers, the generals, and the sprawling armies of foot soldiers.
Now, I want you to really think about this number. 6,666. According to Johann Weir's 16th century catalog of spirits, that specific number equals exactly 1 demonic legion. Just pause and think about that for a second. It's an incredibly precise, almost accounting-level detail. It really emphasizes the sheer, terrifying scale of this kingdom. They weren't just throwing numbers around. They were literally doing the math on the armies of darkness. And all of that massive military might was entrusted to specific commanders. These are the generals of the realm. Take King Bazal, for instance. He commands 66 legions. If we do the math, based on that legion size we just talked about, that is roughly 440,000 spirits under the command of just one guy. Then you have Sabnak commanding 50 legions, Balaam commanding 40. The texts go out of their way to painstakingly document the exact troop counts for dozens of these commanders. It paints this terrifying picture of a hyper-militarized, endlessly sprawling society.
And you're probably wondering, what do these generals even look like? Well, the text described them in these incredibly vivid, totally bizarre details, basically to make sure you never forget their authority. Let's look at King Balaam, that commander of 40 legions we just mentioned. He doesn't just show up in a nice suit. No, he's described as a three-headed king. One head is a bull, one is a man, and the third is a ram. Oh, and he has flaming eyes and a serpent's tail, and he rides around on a furious bear while carrying a hawk on his fist. I mean, you literally cannot make this stuff up. This wild, monstrous imagery was meant to convey ultimate dominance and raw power. I guarantee you're not going to question a middle manager who looks like that.
Finally, we reach the ground floor. Part 5, the human connection. We've seen the emperor, the executives, the regional governors, and the generals. So how does this massive bureaucracy actually interact with us humans?
For that, we turn to the famous 18th century writer Daniel Defoe. You probably know him as the author of Robinson Crusoe, but he also wrote this fascinating book called A System of Magic. And according to Defoe, dealing with the demonic was basically a contractual business arrangement. He defined the black art as a secret, undiscovered conspiracy between the devil and his human agents. It wasn't just spooky, mysterious magic, it was a joint venture. The human magician was essentially acting as a middleman, a localized earthly contractor for this massive spiritual corporation.
Defoe actually broke down the operational methods for how this chain of command extended into our world. He gave us 3 specific ways it happens. First, the magician basically files an application to the spirits, asking for advice. Or, second, the spirits act like really aggressive salespeople. They just come of their own accord to offer a deal. And third, these spirits are just permanently stationed around us, like embedded field agents, always there and ready to be spoken to. When you think about it, it's a terrifyingly mundane, almost administrative way of looking at temptation. You engage with the system, you agree to the terms, and the bureaucracy signs off on the power.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. We've looked at thrones, executives, regional compass governors, legions, and middleman contractors. My question to you is, were these ancient, highly organized structures of evil simply mirrors reflecting the complex, often corrupt hierarchies of human society itself? Think about it. Maybe mapping out these vast, dark bureaucracies wasn't just about theology or magic. Maybe it was the ultimate projection of human anxiety. By giving evil an organizational chart, they took the terrifying unknown and made it feel familiar. And in doing so, they might have revealed a deep-seated fear that the complex hierarchies of our own human society are actually the truest reflection of hell that we know. Definitely something to keep in mind the next time you look at a corporate org chart. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the structures around you.